4 एग्ज़ाम, फिर से नंबर नहीं आए ना, कोई बात नहीं। स्पीकिंग में बार बार रह रहे हैं, स्पीकिंग में 50 भी नहीं ले पा रहे हैं। स्पीकिंग बहुत अच्छा है, अनडाउटेडली स्पीकिंग बहुत अच्छा है, बहुत अच्छी तरह से बोल रहे हैं, तो क्या रीज़न है? सो सी दैट इट्स लाइक ए ह्यूमन ईयर्स, जैसे हमारे कान होते हैं उसी तरह से इस सॉफ्टवेयर के भी कुछ कान हैं, कुछ फ्रीक्वेंसी को ये ग्रैब कर सकता है। सो इफ़ योर वॉइस इज नॉट अप टू दैट पर्टिकुलर फ्रीक्वेंसी, सो सॉरी, आपका स्कोर कभी नहीं आएगा। सो फॉर दैट अब क्या करना चाहिए? यू कैन डू दैट, येस, यू हैव टू मैनिपुलेट योर वॉइस, आपको थोड़ा सा चेंजेस करना होगा, एंड यू कैन गेट अ वेरी गुड स्कोर इन PTE। सो फॉर दैट जस्ट सेंड मी योर पर्टिकुलर ऑडियो, मुझे अपनी ऑडियो भेजिए पूरे मॉक टेस्ट की, और आफ्टर दैट आई विल जस्ट इवैल्यूएट कि कहाँ पर क्या आपको करना चाहिए। सो आई फील दैट नेक्स्ट एग्जाम यू विल गेट अ वेरी गुड स्कोर। हैव अ नाइस डे, बाय।
One of the things that people have said about agriculture is that on the whole it's more labor-intensive than hunting and gathering, and that's one of the reasons why people have looked to explanations which, you might say, are kind of corrosive factors that people have been forced into agriculture because they had no alternative. That is ultimately what may happen. But at the very beginning it could be that agriculture was developed because people wanted special status foods for feasting. That it was actually a social need. I mean, how much of what we do in our lives is generated by competition with others? And a lot of that is powered by desire for new things, new statuses, new whatever it might be. Respect, recognition also are important. For 4 centuries the Viking declined. The people of the Shetland Islands off the north coast of Scotland continued to sell their goods through the North European Hanseatic League. The Hanse's merchants bought shiploads of salted fish and in return the islanders got cash, grain, cloth and other goods. This lasted until the Act of Union between Scotland and England in 1707. This act prohibited the Hanse merchants from sheltering with Scotland. Consequently, Shetland went into an economic depression. The independent farmers of Shetland had to sell their land and were then obligated to pay rent, eventually becoming serfs. My hero is Marie Curie. She was a Polish physicist and chemist working in France, and she did conduct pioneering research on radioactivity. She was also the first woman who won a Nobel Prize. Marie Curie is my hero because she showed a lot of determination in following her career path and her passions. She also showed a lot of patience in working for years to receive results from her experiments. And Marie Curie, she designed and built the first mobile X-ray machines. She worked on the front lines of the First World War along with her daughter saving soldiers. College application essays require you to follow a prompt or question. Select one idea, develop it throughout the essay, and include only the information that pertains to your topic. You might try to avoid writing abstract ideas or generalized thoughts. Instead, use concrete information and examples, which will prevent your writing from becoming lengthy and unfocused. For example, if an essay prompt asks you to write about your college goals, instead of discussing general topics like getting good grades, meeting new people and earning a degree, you may be better served to write about the specific area you plan to study, the steps you plan to take to graduate with honors, and how you want to take part in student organizations in order to network or serve the community. In some countries, parallel pre-primary education systems have emerged, those privately provided alongside government ones. A recent study following children in 362 villages in 3 Indian states showed that while 85% of children in Assam attend government child and mother care centers that also provide non-formal preschool education, Angawadis, only 52% do in Andhra Pradesh and 20% in Rajasthan. Meanwhile, about 30% attend private schools in Andhra Pradesh and 40% in Rajasthan, reflecting the enormous growth in private pre-primary schools across rural, urban and tribal areas. 4 countries in the region, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Maldives and Nepal, have arrived at public-private partnerships, usually involving state funding for private provision, though often with some fees as well.
Planets which generate magnetic fields in their interiors, such as Earth, Mercury, Jupiter and Saturn, are surrounded by invisible magnetospheres. Their magnetic fields deflect the charged particles of the solar wind, electrons and protons, as they stream away from the Sun. This deflection creates a magnetosphere, a protective bubble, around the planet, which ends in an elongated magnetotail on the lee side of the magnetosphere. Since Venus has no intrinsic magnetic field to act as a shield against incoming charged particles, the solar wind sometimes interacts directly with the upper atmosphere. However, Venus is partially protected by an induced magnetic field. As on Earth, solar ultraviolet radiation removes electrons from the atoms and molecules in the upper atmosphere, creating a region of electrically charged gas known as the ionosphere. The SRO worked in close collaboration with a social worker and the university researcher. They coordinated a response planning team comprising many stakeholders that was intended to respond to each of the areas identified in the initial analysis. Environmental changes included modifying the school schedule and increasing teacher supervision of hotspots. Counselors and social workers conducted teacher training courses in conflict resolution and bullying prevention. Parent education included mailings with information about bullying, an explanation of the new school policy, and a discussion about what could be done at home to address the problems. Finally, student education included classroom discussions between homeroom teachers and students, as well as assemblies conducted by the SRO. David Ricardo would have answered no to both questions as we do today. While India may have an absolute advantage in both activities, that fact is irrelevant in determining what India or the United States will produce. India has a comparative advantage in doing programming in part because such activity requires little physical capital. The flip side is that the United States has a comparative advantage in technology innovation partly because it is relatively easy to obtain capital in this country to undertake such long-run projects. The result is that Indian programmers will do more and more of what US programmers have been doing in the past. In contrast, American firms will shift to more and more innovation. The United States will specialize in technology innovation. India will specialize in programming. There are numerous good examples of where travel and tourism is acting as a catalyst for conservation and improvement of the environment and maintenance of local diversity and culture. Travel and tourism creates jobs and wealth and has tremendous potential to contribute to economically, environmentally and socially sustainable development in both developed countries and emerging nations. It has a comparative advantage in that its start-up and running costs can be low compared to many other forms of industry development. It is also often one of the few realistic options for development in many areas. Therefore, there is a strong likelihood that the travel and tourism industry will continue to grow globally over the short to medium term. Media consultant Paul Bay believes that just as with pebbles in a pond, a carefully choreographed and meticulously timed stream of communication will have a more lasting effect than a sporadic big splash during primetime TV breaks. Innocent is testament to the power of pebbles. Until last year, The maker of smoothies had never advertised on TV, instead drip-feeding the market with endless ingenious marketing ploys, from annotating its drinks labels with quirky messages to hosting its own music festival, Fruitstock. The company sent a constant stream of messages rather than communicating through the occasional big and expensive noise. So whether you're trying to make waves in the laboratory or in the media, the people in white coats would advise a little and often.
Spurred by the sense that disorderly behavior among students in South Euclid was increasing, the school resource officer, SRO, reviewed data regarding referrals to the principal's office. He found that the high school reported thousands of referrals a year for bullying, and that the junior high school had recently experienced a 30% increase in bullying referrals. Police data showed that juvenile complaints about disturbances, bullying, and assaults after school hours had increased 90% in the past 10 years. A researcher from Kent State University, Ohio, conducted a survey of all students attending the junior high and high school. Interviews and focus groups were conducted with students identified as victims or offenders, teachers, and guidance counselors. The results from the various responses were dramatic. School suspensions decreased 40%. Bullying incidents dropped 60% in the hallways and 80% in the gym area. Follow-up surveys indicated that there were positive attitudinal changes among students about bullying, and that more students felt confident that teachers would take action when a problem arose. Teachers indicated that training sessions were helpful and that they were more likely to talk about bullying as a serious issue. Parents responded positively, asking for more information about the problem in future mailings. The overall results suggest that the school environments were not only safer, but that early intervention was helping at-risk students succeed in school. Some of this panic is overdone and linked to the business cycle. There was much ado about a war for talent in America in the 1990s, until the dot-com bubble burst. People often talk about shortages when they should really be discussing price. Eventually, supply will rise to meet demand and the market will adjust. But, while you wait, your firm might go bust. For the evidence is that the talent shortage is likely to get worse. Nobody really disputes the idea that the demand for talent-intensive skills is rising. The value of intangible assets, everything from skilled workers to patents to know-how, has ballooned from 20% of the value of companies in the S&P 500 to 70% today. The proportion of American workers doing jobs that call for complex skills has grown 3 times as fast as employment in general.